All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of I Call It Brain Gains with Lesley Timbol. It's great to have her back on. Lesley, thank you once again for joining me.
And thanks for having me on, Mark.
Absolutely, yeah, it's always great to have you on. There's a couple topics we wanted to cover today in relation to some stories that have been going on in the bodybuilding industry, and of course, all of them relate to mental health. But first of all, Lesley, did you want to plug your channel, the various shows that you have again at the beginning here?
Yeah, so it started off with RX Muscle. Dave Palumbo and I do a show every Monday. We've been trying to do it live on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes that doesn't work out and we have to change the time or we have to tape it. But it is, we do it every week on Mondays. It's called Iron Therapy. If you just check out the RX Muscle YouTube channel, or if you go to my, I have my own YouTube channel, and I do something called Mental Iron. So I do something very similar to what Dave and I talk about. Sometimes I take the same topic and I just expand on it. And then I do a question and answer with anyone who wants to join me. So my YouTube channel, if anyone wants the link, just go to my Instagram, and it has the link in my profile. So my Instagram is Lesley T. So it's Lesley T_mental_iron.
Okay, yeah, well, last time I believe I plugged your YouTube, I plugged the RX show, and then I plugged your Instagram too. So I'll do that again.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, absolutely. And then for me personally, as Lesley knows, I just joined Raw Nutrition, which is Chris Bumstead's line. So I now have my own code, and that can be found on my Instagram, on my bio, and then in my link tree. So I'm now officially a part of Raw Nutrition, which is awesome because
congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. And Lesley was the one that mentioned, suggested that I do that. So all thanks to her. But yeah, it's a great, I really like the line. Chris Bumstead is obviously one of the more famous fitness guys in the industry right now. And, on Nick Trigili's channel, he was talking to Seth Feroce, and he said that, without Chris Bumstead, the fitness industry may not be as famous because, or as well known, because he's such a force in the industry. He's so famous, and he has so much attention and fans, and rightfully so, because he's classic physique, and that's what I like. So, yeah, it's cool to be a part of it. But first, real quick, Lesley, I just wanted to talk a bit about, because Dave Palumbo talked about it so much. Big Ramy not coming to guest pose at the Jim Mannion show, and for just a short background, they've back-to-back defending Olympia champ for the open bodybuilding is Big Ramy from the Middle East, and he did not come to a guest posing, which I guess all most bodybuilders go to, especially being that it's one of the head guys' shows. He wasn't able to even come. I guess he didn't even give anyone a call. And as Lesley knows, Dave is one of my favorite people on earth, but I just kind of I disagreed with what he said in terms of, he didn't want to come and not look good around the other bodybuilders, that he might have been a little scared. And you also said that it really wasn't anyone's business why he didn't come. But, for me personally, I thought he's Mr. Olympia, two-time defending Mr. Olympia. I don't think he's scared of anybody, to be honest. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on maybe why he didn't come, or maybe what was going through his head, and then we'll cover the Nick Walker story.
Sure. So the thing with Ramy, I mean, he was scheduled to go. So he promised the promoter that he was going to be there. Dennis James was expecting him to be there. His picture was on the poster. He was slated to be there, and he was going to be there. This was not a matter of, if I was Ramy, I'm afraid because I'm hearing these other guys that are going to be there. I really don't believe that's the case. Do I know 100%? No, but I'm 99% sure that's not the case. I think there's might be another reason there, but that's not it. I think something came up very last minute, especially from my understanding, and because he had every intention of being there. I think, life does happen. So I understand things do come up. I think where Ramy had made an error is that he waited too long before he did come out. I think it was like a week and a half. It was just under 2 weeks, I believe, where he did put out a statement apologizing to the promoter and to the fans that he was not there. Because keep in mind, we don't get to see Big Ramy very often. And there's a lot of people who went to the Pittsburgh Pro, that was the show, where, they were looking forward to seeing him. And that's why they got the tickets. So can you imagine that it wasn't even, 24 hours in advance. It was after the fact and no one knew. So, my hope is that he did get in touch. And I think I did see one of the podcasts where he said he did actually speak to him. But again, it's not telling the fans or not doing it a little bit earlier than a week and a half. I understand things may have come up that prevented him to post it right away. But then if anything, he should have had one of the people who work for him to help to, on his behalf, post on his behalf, update, Dennis James, because him and Dennis James and Ramy, work really well together. Dennis James didn't even know what was going on. Now he might know now, but the thing is that if he had communicated, or a team on Ramy's camp had communicated with Dennis James, or again, someone posted something on Ramy's behalf just to let people know that, unfortunately something came up. Ramy will do his own post, but he needs a few days. Something like that. That was not done. So then when when Ramy finally did do his post, and I do really feel like he's genuine based on what I know with Ramy, he takes these things, sometimes a little bit too personally. So I think this hit him hard. He was worried about this. But again, this would have had to be something really big. It wasn't just him missing it. It was how it was handled. That was more of the issue.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly would have come off as disrespectful, even though I highly doubt meant it that way. In fact, he may not really completely understand. Like, he may not completely understand like American traditions and traditions with that, with where he's from, if that makes sense. Like, he may not understand like that if he didn't like even reach out to them, that people would be offended. You know what I mean?
Even if he didn't, there should have been someone in his camp that communicated that to him. Dennis James would have known.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Dennis James was not informed. And so there's kind of like, why was that? So even if, like I said, Ramy couldn't contact Dennis, someone else should have been able to contact Dennis on Ramy's behalf to let him know, to keep him in the loop. Yeah. So I think, that lack of communication ended up becoming an issue. Whether Ramy knew about what the ripple effect would be. Do I think he understands it now? Yes, because all of a sudden he's starting to post stuff.
Yeah.
But he has to come in. If he comes in like he did last year, he's not going to win. I will guarantee you he will not win. He has to come in much better. Yeah. Much more like deeper cuts. And obviously size is not the issue for Ramy. It's the conditioning and, having that really full look. That's what he needs to go for. Now, do I think he can do it? Yeah, of course. But the problem is with Ramy, he can get into his head. So hopefully, Dennis can help him with the mental aspect of that. And if he needs more help with that, Ramy, hey, let me know. Or Dennis, contact me and I can help you guys. But, honestly, sometimes it's not just Ramy, any athlete. So this is not just Ramy. This isn't just bodybuilders. We all can get in our heads. Mark, and as an athlete, or a top competing bodybuilder, in this case, Ramy, image is important. Yes, you have to do your thing and do your homework. You have to eat, you have to train. But again, a lot of this is also mental training. And the mental training is not just when you're in the gym. It's also the other hours of the day. And when you're on social media, and I think my understanding from when I saw Dennis James' podcast is that Ramy stays away from social media, which is great. That's great.
Yeah.
He has someone posting content for him, great. But don't look at the comments. It's just head down, focus on your stuff. As long as he's able to do that and not too many people get into his heads, or he has enough people around him to support him to get him back into a proper mental state, he'll be fine. But he's got some tough competition. As you probably saw, Nick Walker is looking killer.
Yeah.
And then Derek Lunsford, if he goes into the Open, he's going to be a force to be contended with as well. And then, of course, we've got the other heavy hitters. I mean, so it's not going to be an easy stroll on the park, which is great because as a fan, we want to see tough competition. We want to see everyone at their best.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're 100% right about the Open guys. There is so much competition. I mean, Regan, Nick, Derek Lunsford. I mean, there's just so many guys that.
Hadi Chifon. I mean,
yep.
Hadi. I mean, there's just a lot of good crop of guys there.
Yeah. Brandon.
Brandon, of course, Brandon. How could I forget Brandon? No.
Yeah, and yeah, these guys are just the way they look and how they can be that big and that shredded is just. There's only a few people in this world that can look like that, you know, as a man. And
yeah. And then William Bonac, I mean, he's been, you know, hitting it out of the park and getting his consistency back. I mean, here's the other thing, consistency. It's one thing to be able to hit hit a certain look once. That's hard enough as it is. And peaking on that day in that moment, doing it over and over again, that's trickier.
Yeah.
So no one can sleep.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. William Bonac. I was just going to say that William Bonac, he's one of my favorite bodybuilders. I think I've said that to you before. And he's just I just admire his physique. I really like his physique. And he's just one of those guys that I think really has a chance to, that possibility of a sleeper winning is always there because Ronnie Coleman did it. And I mean, he never lost. He didn't lose again for another 8 years. So that possibility of a sleeper is always there. So yeah, the Open Olympia will certainly be interesting for sure. And when I said that Ramy may not understand, I certainly didn't mean his intelligence. It's just there's a language barrier there. He lives in a different part of the world where culture is just different than American culture. So that's what I meant by that. But as Dave Palumbo might say, that's ridiculous. He would say that to Chris and John and everyone else. So, but yeah, Lesley, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. But on to Nick Walker. So he was on Hani Rambod's podcast, and I actually saw that Flex has a podcast too, which is really cool. I didn't know that. I was watching the episode with the Hodge twins today, and yeah, it's good. It's a good podcast, and I hope Flex just does well with his gym and does his podcast and just enjoys his life because, you know, he's no longer competing. So, and he's a great guy too, especially from what you said. Yeah, because you know him. So, so the Nick Walker story, he was on Hani Rambod's podcast and he spoke about childhood trauma. I'm not really going to get into any detail about it. Like Nick Trigilli said, he said he probably doesn't want to talk about it too much on his show because it's, you know, that's Nick Walker's story, but he experienced serious childhood trauma, and that is, you know, as severe and traumatic as you can get of an experience. So clearly he's overcome that because he is very successful and he is top bodybuilder. He is a freak of nature. He's clearly put in his time. So the reason I brought this up is I just wanted to cover, you know, experiencing trauma and overcoming that, and taking the Nick Walker route and becoming an elite at what you do, rather than taking the other route, which has happened so many times, getting into drugs or suicide, whatever it may be. You know, how do you kind of transition that trauma into a positive way?
One of the things that Nick used that I recommend for other people is having a good social support network. He was able to have a conversation. I watched the interview with Hani as well. And he was able to have, once he was able to tell his mom, that changed everything. So now, granted, not everyone is in the same situation where they're going to have the support of their parents. I've counseled so many clients that have been abused in one form or another as children, and they actually tried to tell a parent, and the parent didn't believe them. So, you get that spectrum too. Now, if you can't find the social support in, let's say, a family member, like your parents, if this happened to you as a kid, if you can't, now sometimes we don't feel comfortable telling our friends too, or trusted, let's say, mentor. Sometimes we'll have a coach or a teacher that we feel a bit more comfortable with. You can try telling them. If not, go to a third party like myself. I won't know you, and I have some skills to help you basically achieve those things. But for people who want to try to deal with their trauma on their own, it is tricky to do it on their own. It's not impossible. Like I said, Nick obviously did it, but he had the support of his family. Now, with a therapist, if a therapist was introduced earlier, can that accelerate the process of healing? Absolutely, it can. Mm-hmm. But, as far as maybe some takeaways for people who, aren't able to go to therapy for whatever reason, a big piece is addressing a lot of the feelings that are associated with the memories. So one of the common feelings that people tend to feel is a sense of guilt or shame. So what I mean by that, Mark, is that on some level, they internalize that it was kind of my fault that this happened. It doesn't matter how old they were, but they somehow internalize, let's say I was a bad kid, I didn't always listen to what I was supposed to do. Sometimes I talked back to my parent, and that's why this happened. Well, no, that may have happened, but that's not why it happened. Because lots of kids talk back, and there's no way they should have ever be abused, physically, mentally, emotionally, sexually abused. No, that doesn't make it okay. So sometimes, realizing, and that's why it's actually good to speak to a therapist. But again, I appreciate not everyone's going to be able to see a therapist. To say, okay, really look at where this happened, and looking back and being realistic. What we remember as a kid and what we find as far as what happened, when we look back on it as an adult, we should be like, well, that's not right. Yeah, I did talk back to my parents, but that did not give my parent or my aunt or my uncle or my grandparent or whoever it is, because it's usually, when someone's abused, it's usually by someone you know. Now, it doesn't have to be necessarily a family member. Like with Nick, it was with a teacher. Again, someone who is in a trusted kind of circle. It's not usually, when you look at statistics, it's usually someone the person knows. Is it going to happen with strangers? Yes. Does that happen? Of course. Runners. I have lots of, athletes are runners, and they've been raped. They go running at night, they have their headphones on, they're listening to music, they're chugging along, and they get raped. That's an unknown person. But statistically speaking, it's mostly people that we know. But regardless, it's looking back and saying, is that my fault? Oh, I shouldn't have gone running at night, or I shouldn't have been able to wear my headphones at night. No, you should be able to do that. It's not your fault that there's creeps in this world. But really kind of digging down. Now, some people aren't able to do that because they're so immersed in their grief and all the feelings that come as a result of the trauma that they can't get out of their heads. And that's where I do recommend, if you can, see a therapist. But even journaling, I would tell people, start with a journal. Journal, what are your triggers? So what do I mean by a trigger? Something that you would see, hear, touch, smell, whatever the senses are, and all of a sudden the memory of that trauma, that bad experience would come back to you. So for some people, let's say people in the military, classic example, a loud noise. They think it's like a gunshot. It's just, they're just so wired, they're on hyper alert. And to say, okay, let me make a list of, when it comes to my mind, what are my triggers? So that when I come in contact with these triggers again, how can I address them differently? Oh, yes, I'm in Canada. Well, technically I am in Canada. I'm in Canada. I'm not, I'm not on the field like I was if I'm speaking in the military, or I'm an adult now, not a kid. So if someone did try to, I'll be a bit more aware when I'm running anyway, but I will carry around. Now, I don't know if they still have pepper sprays, or you can get these keys that if you yank the little thing out, it makes a really, really super high pitched noise. So there's different things you can do to help yourself to, and obviously you can learn martial arts or whatever kind of stuff like that. But, there are things that you can do to say, okay, I can't live at home and live in a bubble. How can I still live my life and still deal with these traumatic memories, so that when I get these triggers, I'm not responding the same way as if I'm reliving the experience all over again? So journaling can give you an idea of when these things happen, and then you can plan what you can do about that the next time those noises, if it's an auditory thing, or again, it could be a vision. Yeah, it's just keeping a journal, just so you know what are your triggers, when do they happen, and then you can plan on how to deal with those triggers moving forward. So if a trigger is someone wearing a red hat because you got attacked by someone with, let's say, a red baseball cap, that could become a trigger that, even though it's not the same person, anyone you see with a red baseball cap could be a trigger for you. And it's trying to say, what kind of dialogue can you... Okay.
Yep.
So it's just learning to have precautions when you know you're going to hit those triggers. And that's just one example. But like I said, for a lot of trauma, I do recommend someone talking to a professional, because they can tailor the specific scenario that you're going through and your trauma to a solution. And the thing is, that's really hard to find in a book, because there's so many different types of trauma out there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, being that I was like bullied when I was in like elementary school, middle school, pretty much all throughout school, there was times where I was bullied, and that's very traumatic. And yeah, I did the same thing. I blame myself, even though, and for some reason, that's like the psychological trick. You blame yourself, even though you know that it's not your fault, so yeah, that's something I've done too.
But I want to just kind of dive into that a little bit, if you don't mind, Mark, because
Sure.
about why we blame ourselves. Because on one level, we know that doesn't really make sense as we get older and we can look back, but it still doesn't mean we don't feel it.
Yeah.
So I tell people, let's look at the why. So instead of just changing, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, it's, well, let's look at why you feel that way. Even though up here, that doesn't make sense. We got in our heart, it's that insecurity of, we have to blame someone. And if we blame someone we don't know, or we blame someone we do know, basically, we blame somebody else, we can't control another person's behavior. So then we still feel helpless. On some level, if we can blame ourselves, and again, I'm not saying this is the right thing, then we can change something. So it almost gives us hope that if I blame myself, I'm going to learn my lesson so I can ensure this does not happen again. That's the why. Again, I'm not saying that's the right reason or the right logic, but that's the logic behind it, to saying, I can only change me. I can't change other people. I might be able to influence them, but I can't change them. So if I can change me, then I can change the outcome. So I have to blame me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. I can remember many times, like there was times where, that this person might say something that hurts, that, make a joke or say something about someone, or whatever. And you think like, is it when is this going to happen again? How can I avoid it? Is there anything I can do to avoid it so I don't have to feel that way? And that's like, if that makes sense, and that is very traumatic, just having that constant anxiety, that constant worry about a certain person and what they may say, because at the same time, you don't want to do anything that may put you in a compromising position, because if they make you mad enough, you might do something yourself. But yeah, so
So it's about trying to arm yourself with some strategies and a game plan, basically, that if you meet, in this case, the bullying, these people again, what you're going to do.
right.
And there's
Right.
different, and again, depends on your age. It depends on, you know, the circumstances. Like, is this in a school environment? Is this at work? Because there's bullies at work too. So
Yeah. Yeah. And now, I mean, that was a long time ago, but now, I'm a lot bigger than I used to be. Quite frankly, no one really messes with me anymore. It would be smart of them not to, just based off the way I look. But yeah, I've become much more I retaliate much more without hesitating. Can you hear me?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you just froze a little bit. But yeah, I retaliate much quicker now, and I don't really take anything from anybody. So that was my way of kind of dealing with it. Like, all right, that may have happened before, but I'm not going to let it happen again. I'm not going to let it happen anymore. If I feel the need to say something, then I will. Yeah. And it's all about how do I feel? If I don't say something, well, I regret it, and that's it. And you know, up until recently, I've done that. I've done that in a couple circumstances. So, but yeah, before it froze, like I was saying, that was one way I dealt with the trauma that I went through, was by retaliating much quicker. There was there was someone in the gym not too long ago who said something to me, and rather than address it right there, I went up to him later and I said, "Hey, man, I don't really know you. I don't appreciate what you said." And he he apologized, and I knew that for me personally, if I didn't say something to him about what he said, because I didn't know him, it was going to bother me. So that's just one, whether it's justified or not. That's how I felt, and I felt that it was the right thing to do for myself. So yeah, so that's just one way that I dealt with that myself. So
And that's the thing, you know, you don't have to fight. When someone else is being aggressive, you don't necessarily have to be aggressive back. But what you did is you were being assertive, and that's a little different.
mhm.
And, you know, it's not to say you couldn't have made a scene, but it's the necessarily, do you need to make a scene?
Right.
Now that you'll probably have his respect enough that he won't pull that on you again.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's kind of like you just kind of said, look, that wasn't cool. And what you basically said without saying these words is, if you do that again, you and I are going to have a problem.
Yeah. He definitely understood that. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
again, so sometimes it's saying less is more,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. That's kind of my motto is, yeah, say the less is more for sure. Yeah.
Hmm.
But, yeah, I just wanted to get into questions with you, Lesley. I've had several people reach out, in regards to, our episodes, and they have had questions for you. I'll pull them up here. How's the timer? I can't even see the timer now for some reason.
It's like 40 seconds left. So did you want to
Okay.
start a new link so we don't get
Sure.
interrupted?
Yeah, Lesley, just wanted to do this second part of the episode here, and go over some questions that were sent to me. And the first one, it's actually a female. She reached out to me and she asked, uh, well, she told me that she's been doing bodybuilding. It was actually pretty similar to me. She had been doing bodybuilding for almost 10 years now, and she wants to get into physique. And as you know, you do is it physique that you do?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So physique, as you know, you run into some girls that are pretty big, in a feminine way. So she is struggling with the fact that in order to do well and compete in physique, she's probably going to have to go onto gear, steroids, and she mentally, it's a big hurdle for her. So how, I guess, did you do it, and how can you overcome that hurdle of taking the next step? Because a lot of people have a moral issue with it.
Yeah, you know, and I tell people that if you want to, no, here's the thing, it is a choice. I started off training and competing in an organization called the UFE. UFE is just for natural athletes. So from bikini to bodybuilders, males, females, they're all natural. Now, are they all truly natural? No, but they're supposed to be, and the winners are tested. So if you get tested in these natural shows and you're using, you get disqualified. So if this lady who's contacted you wants to know, you know, she's like, you know, I still want to stay natural. I compete with the CPA. So that's the Canadian Physique Alliance. They used to be called the Ontario Physique Association, I believe. So it used to be called the OPA. It's now the CPA. So the CPA has both your open shows, open meaning that you're an enhanced athlete that you use gear, as well as natural shows. So if you want to stay natural, you can just go in the natural division shows, or you, like I said, you can go in UFE. So there are, and I'm not sure if there's other natural organizations out there. I've been out of the loop of that for the past few years. So if you want to stay natural, you can do it. The reason why I ended up going, because I was against PEDs. I had friends that used PEDs and I never judged them, but I was like, I'm staying natural. I'm not gonna touch a PED.
Yeah.
So it was so funny, my learning experience with PEDs. It's like, I didn't even know what it stood for. And someone said about gear, I thought they were talking about a bike. Like I had no idea what they're talking about. So the reason why I switched over is I wanted to exhaust my physical capabilities before I even looked at anything. So I got to a point where no matter how much I trained or I dieted, my body only got to a certain level and it wouldn't get beyond that level. So I hit a plateau. Now, if I wanted to continue competing, in the organization I was with at the time, we'd have these world championships and we get these people from Australia. These girls were big.
Yep.
So, you know, for me to want to go to that next level, I would need to do gear if I wanted to. Now, I could have retired. It's my choice. So I'm not telling people if you're natural, you have to do gear. I'm saying that it was my choice to do gear because I wanted to see if I could take my body to the next level. Having said that, I set down very strict parameters on certain things I would do and certain gear I would never touch. And if I was going to do any gear, it was going to be the absolute lowest dose I was going to do. And I was going to do that. And I knew this is not going to be, because a lot of times people start that way, because I've coached, you know, I've spoken to a lot of bodybuilders that starts low and then gets higher, because whatever dose that you start with, you want to improve. So naturally, a lot of people do higher amounts of gear. And I'm not saying do crazy, but it go higher. So that's another debate. But if you're able to say, well, how many more years do you have left in the tank? How many more years do you want to compete is what I would want to ask this lady. And I don't know, this is just something to think about now that we're bringing this question up, Mark, is maybe we should do actually a live Q&A at some point in time. So if I do have, because I want to answer her question, but I have some other questions, so that will help me give her a more tailored response.
Yeah.
So if she's listening to this podcast, please feel free to either get in touch with Mark or myself, and we're happy to either talk about it another time, or I'm happy to dialogue with you. Like I said, my Instagram account is Lesley T_mental_iron. Just shoot me a DM. But if she has, let's say, a few more years, she's like, you know what? I'm not going to do this for maybe more than 2 years. Do your homework. If you're going to go into the gear, know what the consequences will be. You don't have to take everything, by the way.
Yeah.
You might only take 1 or 2 things, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But just don't wing it. Do your research, especially for females, especially in whatever age group you're in. Talk to other athletes who know what they're, you know, who know and can give you some of the, well, beware of this. if you take this, this is going to happen. Are you okay with that? Are you willing to pay that price? Because there are some consequences, especially for females, where it doesn't change. Even if you stopped using the PEDs, that's a permanent change. You have to be able to live with that. And is that worth it if you're only going to compete for 2 more years? Maybe it is. Maybe it is, but that's a personal decision. So I can appreciate the struggle whether or not to go more, because you're risking your health. Every time you do this, you're risking your health. So you have to say, is that worth it? And it's a gamble. None of us want to, anyone that's using PEDs, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself. Do I want a lot of these outcomes? No, of course not. But for me, that drive, for me getting on stage, I'm not willing to do, by the way, any kind of dosage just to win.
Yeah.
I refused, because I learned this is the advantage of being natural. A lot of people who are natural for a long time and then go on PEDs actually have a bigger advantage because they know what it's like to suffer. These people who do start with PEDs don't know what suffering is.
Right.
They think they know. And if they start on PEDs too soon, they don't know what their body's natural abilities are. And then they end up having to increase the dosage a lot earlier, which increases health risks. So, I mean, I don't know this lady's age and, like I said, how many more years she has left in the tank, but that's something to consider. But if you are going to go to the dark side, so we call it, like I said, research everything, talk to some reputable people in the industry, get their feedback, basically do your due diligence before you decide whether or not to do this. Do your homework.
Yeah, and she is 27, so she's at the age where she started lifting when she was 17, and I know what she looks like. She has a very good physique, so I told her, I said I would never give you any advice on PEDs because I don't know nothing about them and I've never done them myself, but I do know that it is important to put the time in naturally first. And so we're both kind of in the same boat with that. But
even though she's been doing it for 10 years, which is a long period of time, because of her age, she hasn't maxed out her potential. So I would really encourage her to max out her potential and stay in natural shows for now. But if you're going to pay money, instead of doing it to gear, get a really experienced coach.
Yeah.
And if you ever get a coach, and we can talk about coaching, that's another topic we can talk about. Sometimes the coaches are worth it. I know we want to save money, and I understand that. Trust me, I understand that. But sometimes you get what you pay for. So if you get, let's say, another girl at the gym, and she's got a great trainer, and she talks really highly about this trainer, and let's say she's in women's physique, so you respect her opinion because she's in the field and she likes this trainer.
Yeah.
Do a consult with them, with the trainer. Those are free. Make a list of questions. What can I expect if I work with you? How often do we check in? Obviously, you want to know the money piece, but the same, do you offer both the training and the diet? What's your approaches, or what's your thoughts on cheat meals? Do you normally recommend, given my body type, I should do a 16, 20, 24 week prep? What are your thoughts on PEDs? Have you ever coached anyone who's natural? Have you ever coached anyone who's natural, who's a female in their late 20s and in women's physique? You can have the best coach in the world, but if they've never coached a female in women's physique, you might want to think twice.
Yeah.
Because again, you want someone with the experience. And if they do, can I have a few of their names and talk to them? And if it's the coach that says, well, we use this, this, and this, and you're like, well, I want to stay natural. And if they say, well, if you want to stay natural, then, you won't get really, really far. That's the wrong coach for you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes coaches are good and they get results from their athletes where the athletes don't know better. They get good results because they're doing higher amounts of gear. So yes, you can quick results, but there's a cost later on.
Yeah. And I think it's important too that, like you said, with the steroids, is do your research on the coach too, like how they are as a person, other people they've worked with. Because I've heard of so many coaches locally here that I personally would not work with because I've heard from other people what they did with them. And I mean, I've heard of coaches that 2 weeks from the show, they stop answering them after they get sent their last payment.
Okay.
So stuff like that. It's stuff that, so for me, if I could give some advice on a coach, even though I've never used one, if I were going to use a coach, I would use someone that is not locally where I am. I would use someone like that you that you at least talk to quite a bit, but at the same time, I don't know. I just feel like someone that, like maybe someone like Dave, or if you were a coach, someone like you who may not be in person, but at least that they're good at what they do and they're not going to ditch you and stuff like that.
I mean, you can have a good online coach. Now, it depends locally. You can have some good local coaches. Now, where you are is different because, again, it's a different kind of industry. But if you were living in, let's say, Vegas, Florida, Texas, there's some really damn good coaches in all those cities.
Yeah.
So again, it depends on where you live. But
definitely,
if you do, I mean, in the ideal world, if you can have a coach that sees you train and sees what your development is like, because yes, you'll do what we call submit these progress pictures, whether it's once a week, twice a week, or whatever. When they see you in person, it's different. So if they can see you in person, assuming they're reputable and everything, that's the ideal. If you can't find someone in your area, yes, go for the online coaches, but don't skimp. Do your research. If it's a really good coach, put the money in because you will get it back because they've got a level of knowledge that the regular coaches do not have. Because unfortunately, and I'm sure you've come across this too, Mark, you can get someone who's competed. They just got their pro card and all of a sudden they're a coach.
Yep.
Getting a pro card does not make you a coach in my book.
No.
In my book, I think it requires some training. You need to know how to work around injuries. What about people who have certain diet restrictions? If they have IBS, if they have diabetes, if they have whatever, how do you help them with their nutrition plan in that respect? Like there's other things about being a coach, especially with the dialing in process with different body types. Anyone can dial someone in, if they, they have a high metabolism because it's easier to kind of fill them up. Take your average female who has a harder time losing the fat, especially in the lower body regions. Again, I'm not saying this is for all women, but for a lot of women, we have a hard time losing in our lower half. Now, some people, it's the upper half. Again, we all have body parts that are a little more stubborn than others. But for females, we don't, we have, our body wants to naturally hold on to fat. So it's harder to lose it. And the tricks of the trade of what you need to do to get rid of that fat and not go too extreme. Because I had a coach that took me too extreme. I almost went to the hospital. And this has nothing to do with the diuretic. This is before diuretic. So I was on such a low, like it was a little, when I look back, I'm like, so, and this was actually on the advice of someone I respected. That's why I went with this coach. But I've learned a lot with coaching. So if anyone has kind of like questions about, do I have a good coach, or what kind of questions can I ask my coach? Like I said, send me a DM and let's chat, because or we'll do a live on coaching, so we can address people's questions. Cause I think that's really important. It's important to have that knowledgeable person, not just knowledgeable in one field, or they've only just become a pro, you know what I mean? Or a social media, guru. Okay. That doesn't necessarily mean you're a coach.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And the same goes for certifications too, in my opinion. Just because you have a certification doesn't mean you know how to train people. So, that was the second question that someone else had in regards to a coach. And that's something that, at some point, you know, I'm going to look into myself as getting a coach. And you're probably the person that I would go through for that in order to find someone, especially because you have had coaches and you know people that are coaches. So, yeah. So I guess, yeah, like you said, the same goes for everyone else listening. If you need a coach, you can certainly reach out to Lesley in regards to that. So, Lesley, the last question here. I'll just do three. There was more than three,
We
but
can do more than three.
okay, you want to?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So this one, and this is something I think I've talked about before too. You know, as bodybuilders, you know, life gets in the way sometimes. Whether you're doing bodybuilding like me, just as a hobby right now, or you're doing it for a show, or you're doing it professionally, life can get in the way. So how can we overcome being too hard on ourselves sometimes when we fall off the wagon and either don't hit the gym on a day that we should, or, you know, we miss a meal, or, you know, we don't get enough protein in for the day, just stuff like that. You know, how do you overcome those? Because for me personally, I can be too hard on myself about stuff like that. So, you know, this person is the same way. You know, how do you overcome that barrier?
All right. So remember these three words: Control Alt Delete. Do you remember what that does?
Yep. Yep.
It's a reset, which I do quite a bit on my computers. But I mean, it's what we sometimes we need to reset. And when I say that, I mean literally picture the word Control Delete, saying tomorrow's going to be another day. And just saying, until, you know, what do I need to do today to prepare for tomorrow? So if you missed a meal or a workout or whatever it is that you were supposed to do,
Yeah.
saying, how do I ensure I have the ideal day tomorrow? And how can I ensure that I don't miss any more meals today? So let's say you're like, you know what, I just don't feel like doing legs right now because that's such a big, or back, like one of the bigger body parts. Okay, what about arms? What about delts? I don't feel like going into the gym. Okay, do you have 2 water bottles? Do a lat raise and hold it for 20 seconds. Those little water bottles are going to be pretty damn heavy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you hold it and then hold it longer and longer and longer, you try to hold it for 2 minutes. Good luck. That's going to be heavy. So there's a ways around it. It's about being creative sometimes. And it's so Control Delete, what it is, it's basically, can you forgive yourself? This is a moment in time. We can always fall. The question is, how fast can you get back up? So if you miss that meal, okay, I'm not going to miss any more meals. So if you're not going to miss another meal, you focus, and you may not have the appetite, because sometimes when we're feeling down, or like we have sometimes, you know, we can lose our appetite to actually eat. Then get a protein shake.
Yep.
Still get that protein down. Get some healthy fats, whether, you know, use the, you know, if you like avocado, or, you know, olive oil or macadamia oil or coconut oil. Like, there's different types of fat sources you can use. Get some veggies in there, greens. And if you're too lazy, get a greens drink. Like, I drink a greens, like it's powder, and all you do is you do like a scoop, cup of water, mix it. There you go. There you go. 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. Yep. So yes. I mean, even if you're not motivated, it's having a backup plan. Control Delete is give yourself permission to reset and talk about what can you do moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, I can relate to this person too, because I just started a full-time job recently at a new place. And yeah, it's scheduling and making sure you have everything in place so that you can knock it out in an according manner. So yeah, 100%.
If you plan, you don't have to think.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we have to like think at the moment, sometimes, but yes, like, oh yeah, what am I supposed to eat? Have it planned out. Every morning I always make my next 3 meals, and I always pre-cook stuff, but I have it measured on plates in my fridge. My next 3 meals before I sit down in front of my computer after I have breakfast. So that's all ready to go. So like the more you can plan ahead of time, the more you're able to execute as well as you'd like to. So it's that whole, if you feel, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So if you plan, you're not going to fail. But if you do, get back up saying, okay, I missed this meal. What about next meal? I'm not going to miss next.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So that definitely answers that question for sure. Okay. All right. This one, the environment, they say the environment at their gym isn't exactly what they would like it to be. And they said that they don't have too many options with gyms around their area. I don't know where this person is from, but they say the environment at their gym isn't what they would like it to be, and there aren't too many options where they're from. So I would assume maybe they're probably in some sort of like remote area. I'm not sure, but they basically want to know, how do you overcome a bad gym environment? That's basically their question.
At one point, if you're serious about this, I would consider moving. But in the interim, whether you do now, when they said bad environment, I'm not sure if they mean the people.
Yeah, I'm not sure. They didn't specify. I'm assuming either the people, maybe they don't have the equipment that they like.
Okay. Because I want to address both of those. If it's the people, I would try training, if you can, at a different time of the day, because you'll get different kinds of people depending if you go in the morning versus the evening, as an example, or if you're, those weekend warriors versus, the regulars. So, if it's possible, try to train at a different time of the day, if it's the people. Now, if it's the equipment, you can always, now this is something you'd have to look into, whether it be secondhand or third hand, getting some stuff that you don't have in your gym and working out at home. With COVID, I was relying on I had an incline bench and dumbbells for for a while before I could add to it, because nothing was in stock. But I mean, you have to start small, but you can do a whole bunch of stuff with a bench and dumbbells. Are you going to be able to do super heavy stuff? No, but for legs, have you ever done Bulgarian split squats? Okay, those can get heavy, especially if you go deep, do a full. And what I did on my legs last time, I did 1.5s. So what I would do is I do the full range, half, up, that's 1. Full range, up, half, that's 2. Try that. Trust me. Okay. What I want people to understand, don't get caught, because I've been guilty of this. I get caught on numbers sometimes, like whether it's leg pressing or whatever, thinking, well, Bulgarian split squats aren't going to be the same as doing, how many plates on a leg press. Okay, that's true, but your body doesn't know the difference. All it knows is this putting a lot of, stress? And I don't mean injury stress, but am I putting a lot of resistance on that muscle? If you've ever done sissy squats, they're not sissy. Like they're, no. You can do body weight and it will hurt like hell. So, I mean, you can invest in pieces of equipment that aren't, let's say, a leg press, like a sissy little squat. Do you know what I mean? Like the little bench where you sit back.
Yep.
That won't be as much as a leg press. And you can get some really good activation if you're really sitting back and you have your back straight. You're not leaning forward too much. Yep. If you're doing it properly, what you want to focus on in building muscle isn't the number of plates or the weights that you're doing. It's how you're recruiting the muscle. And if you slow down eccentrics, because not all of us can afford 10 plates, no. Let alone 5 sometimes, but you can take a lighter weight and slow down the eccentric, even do a pause and then push up if it's a leg press. But if you're doing like a squat down into the sissy squat, if you do like a 3-second count, not 1, 2, 3, but 1 Mississauga or 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, pause, get up, you will feel it. Trust me.
Yeah, that's if you can see it, that's the sissy
exactly
squat, which I I don't think any. I'm trying to think if any of my gyms have that. I don't think they do, unfortunately. But yeah, that's one example. One example of equipment that you can use. Yes.
And it doesn't take up a lot of space. So if you do, as far as, if you're looking at supplementing equipment in your home, let's say, in addition to it, it doesn't take up a lot of space. And yet again, you don't need any plates for that. And you can still get a really great workout with your legs.
Yeah.
And there's other things you can do for your legs. Have you ever done like plyometric training? Let's jump training. Trust me, your quads, your hammies, with proper plyometric training, and you get your cardio all in one, you can get a damn good workout. So sometimes you might have to change your workout style. Now, if you're training for a show, you can still train for a show and even train at home. We had lots of examples of that where people were prepping for the Olympic who did not have access to a gym. They had to use their home gym. So it was much more limited. Now, if you're not, so I don't know if this guy is a competitor or not, but if this is just from a lifestyle point, you might want to, like I said, either invest in some equipment at home or try different times of the gym to go. So I don't know if that answered his question. If not, I would invite him to please maybe give some more specifics so we can address it next time. Or like I said, DM me.
Okay. Yeah. And all these people that are DMing me, they have watched our episodes, so they will watch this. And while I will keep them anonymous right now,
Sure.
they'll know if their question was answered or not.
Okay.
All right. Next one, Lesley. And most of these ones that I picked, I can relate to. That's kind of why I picked them. So they're kind of answering them for me.
There you go. This is your therapy, Mark.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's helping me too. Next one. With my job, I wake up early, and this is a bodybuilder. This is a guy. He said, with my job, I wake up early, and that's something that can cause me anxiety. And once again, I can relate to that. So waking up early can cause me anxiety. Sometimes I don't always get to bed on time. With bodybuilding, if I don't get enough sleep, I have a lot more anxiety, which is obviously releases bad chemicals. So how do I overcome this anxiety and get on a better sleep schedule for bodybuilding? That's for this person, it looks like they're mainly worried about their bodybuilding lifestyle not being as effective because of not getting enough sleep.
I'd want to look at the underlying causes of the lack of sleep. Is it more, because I have this with a lot of clients, that a lot of my clients have a hard time sleeping on Sundays. Sundays more because Monday is the first day of the work week for most people. So it's kind of when I go to work, whether it's on a Zoom call or it's like in my office, there's a whole lot of stuff and it's going to be a super busy week. So it's kind of the dread, you know?
Yep. Oh yeah. I completely relate to that. Yes.
Okay. So assuming that work might be a piece of it, may not be the only piece, but let's say it's one piece of this. Keep in mind, Monday's going to come whether we like it or not. It's not going to change. Whether you worry about it or whether you don't worry about it, it's not going to change. So, because when I say to people, what about Thursday nights? How come your sleep is better Thursday night? You may not still have a great sleep, but you have a better, let's say Thursday. Say, well, because I only have one more day. Again, assuming you're not working on the weekend. But you still have work. You still got emails. You still have to talk to clients. You still have to deal with bosses. You still have other employees or people who have to report to you. What's different? Sometimes it's also saying what has to maybe change in the workplace to help. That might be managing expectations. Because a lot of times during the week, we have to hit certain targets or certain projects or certain things have to be dealt with. So we're trying to load it up in the beginning of the week so the end of the week won't be as crazy. So we might have to look at how can we negotiate as far as realistic expectations with the workplace, if that's possible. If it's more the focus of, because I have to be up so early, I can't get in, I won't, I get home and let's say you work late. Did he say if you worked late as well?
No, he just I believe he's on like an 8 hour schedule. I would have guessed like an 8 hour schedule. He's probably working at like 6 or 7 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if he's working, let's say 8, even 10 hours, he's going to still be home where I would say, you know what? Okay. Make sure you get your meals in. Plan your meals if you have to take them in. If you have a fridge, now some workplaces do have a fridge and a lot of employees can put their food in the fridge, but let's say you don't, have a cooler. Get a cooler, bring all your food, Tupperware containers, just open it up. You might have to nuke it, done. You can even have a protein shake as one of your meals too, because sometimes people are like, well, I don't have time to, eat. If you're at your desk, now, first of all, you're supposed to legally have at least 2 15-minute breaks, at least. So there's your two, and a lot of times, even if you're at your computer, you can have a protein shake. So you can get your meals in. That's not the issue. You might be a little dehydrated because you're not getting the water in because you don't have time to go to the bathroom as much. Okay. Guess what? You can really load when you get home. But what I'd say is make sure you get a good meal, have time to digest, and then hit the gym. So make sure you plan your bodybuilding around your work schedule. Now, I don't know if this guy is married and has kids. Do we know that?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
There's also the other responsibilities. I'm assuming if he was single, after work, he can eat and then go. But if he has kids, he may not be able to do that, whether it's to help them with homework, get them, if they're younger, maybe read them a story, like showered, whatever, clean up toys, whatever. So he may not be able to get to the gym until super, super late, but then he has to be up early. In that case, I would say, okay, you know what? And is he a competitor right now? Do we know? If
it's a private page. It looks like he does. I mean, he's a big guy in his profile picture, but I don't know if he competes or not. I mean, if he's that worried about his sleep, then he probably does. Yeah, I would assume.
And there's things that you can take also to help with the sleep. Now, don't take sleeping pills. The reason why I'm saying that is, yes, they're very effective. The problem is that there's a high dependency on them. And then once you develop that dependency, you need a stronger dose and a stronger dose. So that's why I tell people try to avoid that. But you can take, whether you take some magnesium, you can take some GABA, you can take some zinc. There's certain things that you can take that has nothing to do with, a sleeping pill, but will help kind of relax you. I would also say, look at your routine when you go to bed. What does that look like? And can we change it at all? And again, I don't know if he has kids or not, so this can impact it. But I would help him put a plan in place, whether his kids or not, let's change your routine. Because if people are like watching the news and then going to bed, bad recipe for sleeping.
Yeah.
Because most of the news is negative.
Yeah.
So that's what goes into our heads when we put our head down. Like we can feel tired, but then our mind can start racing. So, a lot of times people say, Lesley, I'm tired. I can't, like I'm sitting at my desk, or let's say I'm reading a book and I'm like trying, you have like, you do the nod thing.
Yeah.
You're tired and you try to keep yourself up. You're like, okay, time for bed, close it, lie down. And all of a sudden your mind goes, bing.
Yep.
It's like, why can't I sleep? It's because we've conditioned our brain to turn on when our head hits the pillow. What is the sequence of events you're following? Because whatever you're doing, it's not working, but we can change that to get you more tired. So think of your brain like a little kid who wants to have a pillow fight with you every single night before going to bed. So, and you may not have kids, but whether you have kids or not, most people can relate to this, to saying, chances are after the pillow fight, they're not going to fall right to sleep. Because the kids are just get wired.
Yes.
They can be huffing and puffing with the pillow fight, but they're still wired. They're not going to be able to fall asleep right away. So get the pillow fight in, the training if you can. There's your pillow fight as far as the equivalent for an adult. And then, but do some sequences after that of what you're going to do. Try to stay away from the news, please. Listen to let's say a good positive podcast, bodybuilding podcast, if you want. or a lifestyle or entertainment, something that's really, more positive in nature as far as information rather than the news. Maybe you want to read. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Or some people do ebooks. That's okay. Whatever works for you. Or audiobooks, that's fine. Some people listen to music. That will put them to sleep. Okay, that's fine too. Or they'll read some comics just to kind of lighten up their mood and their mindset a little bit. Have a repertoire, or I call it a menu, a little menu of different things that you can do to help get you winded down to finally be able to relax your brain.
Yeah.
So that's something I would say is like sleep strategies and, changing certain routines to saying, because right now it sounds like he's worried that how do I mesh work and bodybuilding? Yeah. And it's like he's fighting it. So that means something that he's doing is not working. So I would want to cover what's not working. What can we put into place so it can work better? And so he doesn't have that stress in addition to, let's say, like I said, the GABA, some people take melatonin, I was saying like zinc, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something, just so he knows, that's something that I've struggled with myself. And it's probably something I'll talk to you more about, especially with my new job. So yeah, Lesley, the timer is running down. So I would love to take more questions, but unfortunately we're on this stupid timer again. So, we went 40 minutes back to back, which is great. So I'm going to get this cut up, but once again, thank you for joining my podcast. It's great to have you on. This is the Brain Gain Show, and you did plug your stuff at the beginning. I will link it down below. I'll link my stuff too, but once again, thank you for joining me.
And thanks for having me, Mark. I really appreciate it. And I welcome anyone who's watching this to please post your questions, so we can answer them either on a podcast or let us know if you want to do a live.
Yep.
If you want us to do a live, usually for my schedule, weekends are a little better than the week if you want to do a live.
Yeah. So before it cut off, Lesley, you were just saying that if people want to do a Q&A or a live Q&A, you're more free during the week.
Weekend, actually.
Weekend. Okay.
Yeah. So if people want us to do the live Q&As, I mean, certainly let us know by either posting underneath this video or contact Mark or I. And if you're shy about having your question posted, I mean, we can keep them anonymous. There's no problem. If you want us to use your name, then let Mark know or let myself know, and then post them, because I want to make sure we address everyone's question. And if you can give me some details, I can really tailor my response to you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. Live Q&A sounds great. I mean, I like I was talking to you before the episode, I used to have a much larger following, unfortunately, and then my account was taken down. But yeah, I would like to do a live Q&A. And I'm not sure exactly how I would do it, because I don't know if I could do it on YouTube. I know Dave does it on YouTube, but he has a certain platform that he uses. So I'd have to figure that out. And he actually did send me his link to how he does it. That Tyler uses, his, I guess you call it his tech guy. So yeah, whether it be on Instagram or, because I think I'd have more reception on YouTube in terms of people interacting than I would on Instagram, because my Instagram is just not that big yet, but it will be someday soon, hopefully. But yeah, I think it'd be better on YouTube. So, but yeah, Lesley, once again, I appreciate your time. I'll probably talk to you a little bit after I stop the recording here, but yeah, once again, thank you for joining my podcast. I really appreciate it.
And thanks for all your questions, listeners. And thanks again, Mark, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.